Captain Rex Bulldozer had been hauling cargo through the Outer Rim for 15 years, and in all that time he had never once been accused of being friendly. Charming? Absolutely not. Diplomatic? That was rich. The man had the social skills of a rusty wrench and the bedside manner of a particularly aggressive hemorrhoid. Which is why when his piece of junk freighter decided to sputter, wheeze and die somewhere between the Horsehead Nebula and absolutely nowhere, Rex was perfectly content to fix it himself and get back to his gloriously antisocial existence. The ship, which Rex had lovingly named the Cosmic Middle Finger, drifted toward an uncharted planet that looked like someone had bedazzled a tennis ball and launched it into space. Green, fluffy, and absolutely covered in what appeared to be cotton candy trees. Rex stared at his navigation screen with the enthusiasm of someone discovering they had to use a gas station bathroom. Great, he muttered, pulling up the diagnostic readouts. Communications array is fried, life support is running on fumes, and I'm orbiting planet Care Bear. This day just keeps getting better. He didn't notice the small, remarkably fuzzy spacecraft approaching his starboard side. The ship looked like it had been designed by someone who thought spaceships should be cute first and functional second. It was painted in pastel pink with little heart decals and what appeared to be a welcome mat attached to the airlock. Inside that aggressively cheerful vessel sat Ambassador Whiskers McFluff, the Fluffington species' foremost expert on xenobiology and first contact protocols. Whiskers had spent his entire career studying alien cultures, and humans were his particular specialty. He had read every available text on human behavior, watched countless hours of human entertainment broadcasts, and considered himself something of an expert on human social customs. Which is why, when he saw the large human in the viewport frantically waving his arms, Whiskers practically vibrated with excitement. By the great Fluff, he squeaked into his communicator. He's performing the traditional human greeting dance. Look at those magnificent arm movements. The passion, the enthusiasm, he's clearly indicating that he wishes to engage in cultural exchange. Rex, meanwhile, was trying to manually reset his communications array by reaching around the console and smacking various components with his wrench. Every time a wire sparked, he gestured wildly at the malfunctioning equipment, his face growing redder with each failed attempt. "Come on, you worthless piece of space junk," he growled, throwing his arms up in exasperation. "Work." Whiskers watched through his telescope, taking detailed notes. Remarkable. The human is now raising both appendages skyward in what can only be a gesture of welcome to the heavens. He's clearly inviting us to witness his joy at this first contact opportunity. Rex caught sight of the pink spacecraft in his peripheral vision and froze. Then he began waving even more frantically, this time directly at the alien ship. "Hey, Hugh, pink ship, my comms are down, I need help." He gestured wildly at his communications console, then at his engine readouts, then at his life support systems. Whiskers nearly fainted with delight. He's seen us. And now he's performing the elaborate human greeting ritual number 7. Look at how he points to various parts of his ship. He's giving us a tour before we've even docked. The generosity, the openness. This human is clearly the friendliest member of his species. Without hesitation, Whiskers engaged his docking protocols and began transmitting what he believed to be the appropriate response, a series of high-pitched chirps and squeaks that sounded like a dolphin having an existential crisis. Rex stared at his radar screen as the pink ship moved closer. "Oh come on, really? Of all the luck. I finally meet aliens, and they're apparently the cosmic equivalent of a traveling circus." As the Fluffington ship attached itself to his airlock, with a soft apologetic little thump, Rex realized his day was about to get significantly more complicated. The airlock hissed open, and Ambassador Whiskers McFluff bounded aboard the Cosmic Middle Finger with all the enthusiasm of a golden retriever who had just discovered that bacon was in fact a food group. He stood about 4 feet tall, covered head to toe in what looked like pink cotton candy, with enormous eyes that sparkled with the kind of naive optimism that made Rex's teeth itch. "Greetings, magnificent human," Whiskers chirped, pulling out what appeared to be a ceremonial scroll covered in glitter. "I am Ambassador Whiskers McFluff, and I am here to participate in your traditional human welcome ceremony. I have studied your customs extensively." Rex stared at the creature, wrench still in hand. "Listen, Whiskers, there's been a misunderstanding. My ship is broken, my comms are down, and I really just need—" "Ah yes," Whiskers interrupted, practically bouncing with excitement. "The ritual of humble denial. You are following the ancient human custom of downplaying your achievements before the great celebration begins. How wonderfully traditional." Rex watched in growing horror as Whiskers began unpacking what could only be described as the universe's most aggressively cheerful party supplies. Streamers that changed colors, confetti that played tiny musical notes when it hit the floor, and what appeared to be a banner that read "Congratulations on your excellent humanity" in 17 different languages. "No, no, no," Rex said, waving his hands frantically. "This is not a party. My engines are failing. Look." He pointed desperately at his engine readouts, which were flashing more warning lights than a Las Vegas casino. Whiskers gasped with delight. "The sacred pointing ceremony. You are showing me the various systems of your ship as a gesture of trust and openness. How deeply moving." He pulled out a small device and began taking pictures. "Wait until the Cultural Documentation Committee sees these authentic human bonding rituals." Rex felt a vein in his forehead begin to throb. Bonding rituals. "I'm trying to tell you my life support is failing." And now the passionate voice escalation. Whiskers squeaked, making more notes. The human raises his vocal amplitude to express the depth of his emotional connection to the moment. "Truly, this is the most comprehensive first contact experience in Fluffington history." In desperation, Rex began gesticulating wildly at every broken system on his ship. Engines broken, communications dead, life support dying. He punctuated each word with increasingly dramatic arm movements. Whiskers was now practically vibrating with excitement. The full-body expression of joy. "Look at those magnificent gestures. Each movement tells a story of human resilience and friendship." He activated his communicator with trembling paws. "Emergency broadcast to all Fluffington vessels in the sector. I have discovered the friendliest human in the galaxy. He is performing the complete advanced friendship display sequence." Rex froze mid-gesture. "Did you just call for backup?" "Not backup, dear human friend. I have called for witnesses. Every Fluffington within 6 parsecs will want to experience this historic moment of interspecies bonding." Through his viewport, Rex could see small pink ships emerging from hyperspace like party balloons at a cosmic birthday celebration. One by one, they began forming what could only be described as a friendship flotilla around his disabled freighter. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," Rex muttered, slumping against his console. Whiskers misinterpreted this as well. The traditional human posture of overwhelmed gratitude. "You are so moved by our enthusiasm that you must physically support yourself." How beautifully humble. As more Fluffington ships arrived, each one broadcasting cheerful greetings and requests to participate in the historic human friendship ceremony, Rex realized he had somehow become the center of the galaxy's most aggressively wholesome misunderstanding. The worst part, his life support really was failing, but now he was trapped in what appeared to be an interstellar group hug with the universe's most enthusiastic species of cosmic teddy bears. Word of the historic human Fluffington friendship ceremony spread through the galactic communication networks faster than gossip at a space station cantina. Within 3 hours, Rex found himself staring at a sight that would have been impressive if it weren't so absolutely terrifying: a full Galactic Council diplomatic fleet dropping out of hyperspace. The lead ship was approximately the size of a small moon and painted in the kind of bureaucratic beige that screamed, "We're here to make this situation infinitely more complicated." As it approached, Rex could make out the Council's official motto emblazoned across its hull: "Unity through excessive paperwork." "Oh, fantastic," Rex groaned, watching as his little corner of space transformed into what looked like the galaxy's most awkward office party. Because what this situation really needed was politicians. The Council ship's communications crackled to life, and a voice that sounded like it had been processed through 17 different committees began speaking. "Attention human vessel. This is Counselor Bleep Blargenstein of the Galactic Council Diplomatic Corps. We are here to witness this unprecedented display of interspecies cooperation." Rex keyed his newly repaired communicator, which Whiskers had helpfully fixed while participating in the sacred human tool sharing ritual. "Listen, Counselor Blargenstein, there's been a huge misunderstanding." "Ah," interrupted Blargenstein's voice. "The traditional human modesty protocol. How refreshing to encounter a species that doesn't immediately demand special recognition for their diplomatic achievements." Through his viewport, Rex could see Whiskers frantically explaining the situation to a group of newly arrived Fluffington dignitaries. Their translation came through his comm system as an excited squeakfest about authentic human emotional expressions and advanced friendship methodologies. Rex tried a different approach. "My ship was broken. I was asking for help. This is all a mistake." "Fascinating," came Blargenstein's response. "The human narrative restructuring technique. You're reframing this historic moment as a simple assistance request to demonstrate that true friendship requires no grand gestures. How philosophically advanced." Rex felt his eye begin to twitch. He looked around his cramped cockpit, now decorated with approximately 47 different species of friendship flowers that the Fluffingtons had somehow materialized from their ships. The air recycling system was struggling to process the overwhelming scent of what could only be described as aggressive cheerfulness. In a moment of pure desperation, Rex decided to try being completely brutally honest. "I am not trying to be diplomatic," he shouted into the communicator. "I am a cargo hauler. I haul things from point A to point B. I do not do friendship. I do not do ceremonies. I just want to fix my ship and get back to work." The communication channels fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then, simultaneously, every alien voice in the fleet began speaking at once in what Rex could only assume was profound admiration. "Remarkable," squeaked Whiskers. "The human authenticity declaration. He strips away all pretense to reveal his true self." "Unprecedented," boomed Blargenstein. "A species so confident in their diplomatic abilities that they can openly admit to having no diplomatic training whatsoever." "Revolutionary," chimed in what sounded like a chorus of at least 6 other species. "The humans have achieved friendship through aggressive antisocial behavior." Rex stared at his communications panel in complete bewilderment. Somehow, his attempt to explain that he was absolutely terrible at this had convinced an entire diplomatic fleet that humans were the greatest diplomats in the galaxy. "This is officially the weirdest day of my life," he muttered. Whiskers, who had been monitoring the human communications as part of his cultural research, immediately broadcast this statement to the fleet as the sacred human philosophical reflection on the nature of existence. Rex was beginning to suspect that he could probably announce his intention to blow up the entire fleet, and they would somehow interpret it as an advanced form of cosmic group therapy. That thought gave Rex a wonderfully terrible idea. If these aliens were determined to misinterpret everything he did as friendship, maybe it was time to see just how far their delusions could stretch. After all, his life support was still functioning thanks to Whiskers' repairs, and he was apparently stuck here until someone figured out how to end this cosmic comedy of errors. Rex stood up slowly, cracked his knuckles with deliberate precision, and fixed the nearest camera with what he hoped was his most intimidating glare. Then he began the most aggressive threat display he could manage while trapped in a space freighter. He started with the classic "I'm gonna break your face" gesture, making slow, deliberate fists and holding them up where everyone could see. Then he moved into what his old Marine buddies used to call the universal sign for pain, which involved a lot of pointing at various aliens, followed by dramatic throat-slitting motions. The response was immediate and exactly the opposite of what any sane person would expect. "By the 7 moons of Flufftopia," Whiskers squeaked, practically hyperventilating with excitement. "He's performing the advanced human emotional expression sequence. Look at those precise hand formations. Each gesture represents a different aspect of deep, meaningful connection." Rex escalated, moving into a full-body intimidation display. He puffed out his chest, squared his shoulders, and began what could only be described as an aggressive strutting pattern around his cockpit. He threw in some mean mugging at the cameras, complete with the kind of scowl that had once made a Centauri pirate wet himself. "Incredible," boomed Counselor Blorgenstein. "The human confidence demonstration. Observe how he claims his territory through purposeful movement. This is clearly a ritual designed to show trust by displaying vulnerability." Rex decided to push things even further. He began shadowboxing, throwing punches at imaginary opponents while making exaggerated, "I'm going to mess you up" faces at every camera he could find. He added some intimidating shoulder rolls and neck cracks for good measure. The alien fleet's response was so enthusiastic that several ships began broadcasting what sounded like applause. "The rhythmic combat dance," shrieked an excited Fluffington scientist. "He's demonstrating the human capacity for controlled aggression as a form of artistic expression. Note how each movement flows into the next." "The precision," added another voice. "The way he targets specific points in space. He's teaching us the geometry of human emotion." Rex paused mid-punch, staring at the communications panel in complete disbelief. Then, because he was apparently committed to this insanity, he decided to go full berserker. He began roaring at the top of his lungs while making the most threatening gestures he could think of. He pointed aggressively at each ship, made "I'm watching you" gestures with his fingers, and even threw in a few choice words that would have made his grandmother wash his mouth out with soap. The reaction was immediate and completely unhinged. The vocal intensity celebration. Whiskers was now crying tears of joy. "He honors us with the traditional human sound of deep emotional connection. And those finger movements. He's literally pointing out each ship to acknowledge our individual presence in this sacred moment." But the real kicker came when Rex, in a moment of pure frustration, grabbed his wrench and began aggressively threatening the air with it, making stabbing motions and generally acting like he was about to dismantle the universe with hand tools. The sacred implement blessing. The shout came from at least 12 different species simultaneously. He's consecrating the tools of his trade. He's showing us that humans can turn any object into a symbol of friendship through the power of passionate gesture. Rex stopped mid-threat, wrench still raised above his head, and stared at the communication panel. Then very slowly, he began to laugh. Not the kind of laugh that suggested amusement, but the kind that suggested a man had finally snapped and was considering the benefits of permanent residence in a nice quiet padded room. You know what, he said to the fleet, still chuckling in a way that would have concerned mental health professionals across 17 star systems. Fine, you want to see human friendship rituals. I'll give you human friendship rituals. Because Rex had just realized something important. If these aliens were going to interpret his most aggressive behavior as the ultimate form of friendship, he might as well have some fun with it. And if there was one thing Rex Bulldozer was good at, it was being creatively intimidating. The really disturbing part was that the aliens had started mimicking his movements. Through his viewport, he could see Fluffington ambassadors attempting to replicate his shadowboxing routine, their fluffy appendages creating what looked like the galaxy's most adorable attempt at threatening behavior. Rex watched a particularly enthusiastic Fluffington trying to look menacing while making throat-slitting gestures, and realized he had accidentally created the most polite threat display in galactic history. Rex stared at the fleet of ships surrounding him, each one filled with aliens desperately trying to copy his friendship rituals, and made a decision that would either go down in galactic history as brilliant or get him committed to the nearest psychiatric facility. He was going to lean into this madness so hard that the universe would have no choice but to make sense of it. All right, he announced to his increasingly eager audience, if you want to learn human friendship rituals, then by God I'm going to teach you human friendship rituals. He started with what he decided to call the aggressive handshake preparation. Rex began flexing his hands in increasingly dramatic ways, making exaggerated gripping motions while explaining, this is how humans prepare to greet someone they really respect. See how I'm warming up my grip muscles? That's because human handshakes can literally break bones if we're not careful. The fleet's response was immediate and terrifying in its enthusiasm. Every ship began broadcasting excited chatter about human greeting strength protocols and the sacred preparation of appendages. Rex could see aliens through various viewports attempting to replicate his hand exercises, some of them using multiple tentacles, others flexing appendages that definitely weren't designed for handshaking. Now, Rex continued, warming to his theme, we move to the traditional human staring contest of respect. He fixed the nearest camera with his most intense glare, and began what could only be described as an aggressive staring session. In human culture, the longer you stare directly into someone's eyes without blinking, the more you honor them. It's basically saying, I think you're so awesome that I want to memorize your face forever. Whiskers was practically vibrating with excitement. The optical intensity exchange. He's sharing his visual energy with us. This explains so much about human psychology. Rex watched through his screens as hundreds of alien eyes, optical sensors and various seeing appendages turned toward the cameras on their own ships, creating what looked like the galaxy's most uncomfortable staring contest. Some aliens were so committed to the exercise that they appeared to have forgotten how to blink. Excellent, Rex declared. Now we advance to the human territorial marking ceremony. He began stomping around his cockpit with deliberate heavy steps, making sure to plant his feet as loudly as possible on the metal deck plates. Humans stomped to show that we're claiming this space in honor of our friendship. The louder the stomping, the deeper the respect. The sound of thousands of aliens attempting to stomp in unison created a rhythmic thumping that resonated through space itself. Rex was pretty sure he could feel the vibrations through his ship's hull, which was either impossible or a sign that he had created the galaxy's first interspecies percussion ensemble. Beautiful, he continued. Now fully committed to this cosmic practical joke. But we're not done yet. Next comes the advanced human vocal projection of affection. Rex took a deep breath and began shouting random phrases at the top of his lungs. This is how much I appreciate you. You are the best aliens in the galaxy. I respect you so much that I have to yell about it. The response was immediate and deafening. Every ship in the fleet began broadcasting enthusiastic shouting in dozens of different languages and vocal ranges. Rex heard everything from squeaks to roars to what sounded like someone gargling with enthusiasm. The cacophony was so overwhelming that he had to turn down his communication system's volume. Outstanding, Rex yelled over the noise. Now for the ultimate human friendship ritual, the celebratory tool appreciation dance. He grabbed his wrench and began what could only be described as the most aggressive interpretive dance in galactic history, swinging the tool around his head while gyrating in ways that definitely weren't covered in any dance instruction manual. The sight of hundreds of alien ships attempting to replicate his dance was something that would haunt Rex's dreams for years to come. He watched Fluffington vessels performing what appeared to be synchronized spinning maneuvers while Counselor Blorgenstein's massive ship executed slow, dignified rotations that looked like a space whale trying to do ballet. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Whiskers broadcasted, his voice thick with what sounded like genuine emotion. "The human has created a universal language of friendship that transcends all species barriers." Rex paused mid-dance, suddenly struck by the realization that he might have accidentally done something profound. These aliens weren't just copying his movements anymore, they were genuinely enjoying themselves. The shouting had turned into something that sounded almost like singing, the stomping had become rhythmic, and the staring contests had evolved into some kind of meditative eye contact meditation. "You know what?" Rex said, lowering his wrench and looking around at the fleet of ships, each one filled with aliens who were now performing their own variations of his ridiculous rituals. "I think I might actually be good at this diplomacy thing." The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent his entire adult life avoiding social interaction, and now he'd accidentally become the galaxy's most effective cultural ambassador by teaching aliens to be aggressively friendly. Counselor Blorgenstein's voice crackled through the comm system, now noticeably warmer than it had been hours earlier. "Captain Bulldozer, the Galactic Council would like to formally request that you consider a position as Special Ambassador for Interspecies Cultural Exchange. Your methods are unconventional, but undeniably effective." Rex looked around his cockpit, now decorated with friendship flowers, filled with the sound of aliens singing, and somehow feeling more alive than he had in years. Maybe, just maybe, this whole misunderstanding had turned into something worth keeping. 3 weeks later, Rex found himself sitting in what the Galactic Council had generously called his mobile diplomatic suite, though it looked suspiciously like his old freighter with some extremely fancy additions. The Fluffingtons had insisted on installing what they called friendship enhancement modules, which turned out to be the most aggressively cheerful interior decorating job in galactic history. Every surface that could be bedazzled had been bedazzled, and several that definitely shouldn't have been. His ship's computer, which had previously communicated through a series of grudging beeps and occasional profanity, now greeted him each morning with "Good morning, Ambassador Rex. Today is a beautiful day to spread interspecies understanding," in 17 different languages. Rex had tried to reprogram it back to its original surly personality, but Whiskers had explained that the optimistic artificial intelligence protocol was a crucial part of human diplomatic methodology. The cargo bay where Rex used to haul spare parts and questionable substances between sketchy space stations had been converted into what the Council called a cultural exchange amphitheater. It was basically a stage surrounded by the most comfortable chairs in the galaxy, where Rex was expected to perform his traditional human friendship rituals for visiting dignitaries. And there were a lot of visiting dignitaries. The morning schedule, displayed on a holographic tablet that had probably cost more than his old ship, showed appointments with the Crystalline Collective of Rigel 7, a delegation from the Hive Mind Cooperative, and something called the United Tentacle Worlds Diplomatic Corps. Each group had specifically requested demonstrations of advanced human bonding techniques. Rex scrolled through the appointment details, shaking his head in amazement. The Crystalline Collective wanted to learn about human acoustic friendship projection, which was apparently what they were calling his shouting lessons. The Hive Mind Cooperative was interested in individual expression through aggressive movement, aka his interpretive wrench dancing. The Tentacle Worlds delegation had submitted a formal request for instruction in the sacred art of optical intensity exchange, which still just meant staring at people really hard. Ambassador Rex. Whiskers bounced into the amphitheater, carrying what appeared to be a clipboard made entirely of glitter. "Your 10 o'clock appointment is here. The quantum philosophers of Nebula Station have traveled 17 parsecs to learn about human existential threat display therapy." Rex looked up from his schedule. Existential threat display therapy. "Oh yes." Whiskers squeaked excitedly. "They heard about how you help species process their aggressive tendencies through therapeutic intimidation exercises. They're particularly interested in your technique of constructive hostility for emotional growth." Rex stared at Whiskers for a long moment, then started laughing. Not the unhinged laughter from 3 weeks ago, but genuine amusement at the absolute absurdity of his life. "You know what, Whiskers, send them in. But first I need to ask you something that's been bugging me." "Of course, Ambassador, anything. Did you guys actually think I was being friendly from the beginning, or did you figure out pretty early on that I was just a grumpy cargo hauler having a really bad day?" Whiskers' enormous eyes sparkled with what Rex had learned to recognize as mischief. "Well, Ambassador, let me put it this way. The Fluffington Intelligence Corps has been monitoring human communications for decades. We're quite familiar with your species' tendency to express affection through mock hostility and verbal sparring." Rex felt his jaw drop. "Wait, you mean you knew?" "Oh, we knew you were trying to threaten us from the very beginning," Whiskers admitted cheerfully. But here's the thing, Ambassador Rex. We also knew that any human who would spend 3 hours trying to scare away aliens instead of just ignoring them or running away was clearly someone who cared enough to engage. Your threats were the most interactive first contact experience in Fluffington history. So this whole thing was a delightful game that got wonderfully out of hand. Whiskers finished. And then something amazing happened. When you started teaching those ridiculous friendship rituals, you weren't trying to threaten us anymore. You were trying to make us happy. That's when we realized we'd accidentally discovered something remarkable. Rex sat back in his absurdly comfortable ambassadorial chair, processing this revelation. So I've been running a galaxy-wide diplomacy program based on everyone pretending my threats were friendship displays. Oh no, Ambassador, Whiskers said seriously. You've been running a galaxy-wide diplomacy program based on teaching people that it's okay to express themselves authentically, even if that expression seems strange to others. Do you know how many species have reported improved mental health since learning your aggressive wellness techniques? Rex pulled up his diplomatic reports on the holographic display. The statistics were genuinely impressive. Interspecies conflicts were down 18% galaxy-wide. Mental health surveys showed significant improvements in emotional expression across 47 different species. The Galactic Council had received more requests for cultural exchange programs in the past 3 weeks than in the previous 3 years combined. The Ridgelian Stress Shouting Championships are next month, Whiskers continued. The Andromedan Interpretive Tool Dancing Festival is planning a tribute to your work, and the Centauri Collective has officially adopted constructive intimidations as a recognized form of therapy. Rex looked at his reflection in the polished surface of his new desk. Still the same gruff antisocial cargo hauler who'd stumbled into this mess 3 weeks ago. But now he was a gruff antisocial cargo hauler who had accidentally revolutionized galactic mental health through the strategic application of creative hostility. You know what the really crazy part is? Rex said to Whiskers. I think I actually like this job. That's wonderful, Ambassador. Though I should warn you, your 2 o'clock appointment is with the Emotional Vampire Collective. They want to learn about sustainable rage management for dietary purposes. Rex grinned, picked up his ceremonial wrench and began warming up his shouting voice. Well then, let's give them a lesson in human friendship they'll never forget. As the quantum philosophers filed into his amphitheater, each one vibrating with nervous excitement, Rex reflected on the cosmic joke that had become his life. He'd set out to haul cargo from point A to point B, and instead he'd become the galaxy's most unlikely peace ambassador. The best part, he was actually good at it. It turned out that the universe was just as weird and antisocial as he was, and sometimes the best way to make friends was to start by acting like you wanted to fight them. Rex raised his wrench in greeting to the assembled philosophers. All right everyone, who's ready to learn some advanced human emotional processing techniques? The enthusiastic roar that greeted this question could probably be heard from 3-star systems away. Rex Bulldozer, former cargo hauler, current galactic ambassador for aggressive wellness, couldn't have been happier if he'd tried.